All right, we're live. So I'm Kent, and I am here with Ben. I'm going to be talking about contributing to React.
Yeah.
So I think what we'll do is I'll just ask Ben a couple of questions about how you contribute to React, and we'll get maybe an intro to the code base, how things work, like if we have a specific feature we wanted to implement, where we would go for that. And hopefully this is helpful for people.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think the first stop is, let's say I feel like I found a bug in React. What do I do?
If you found a bug in React, the best thing you can do for us is, well, first of all, to report it. But when you report it, figure out, make sure that it actually is a bug in React and not a bug in your code. And the best way to do that, and the way that helps us the most, is to reduce it to a minimal example. Ideally, something that can just be in a jsfiddle or a jsbin, where it's just the 20 lines of code that you need to reproduce the error without any extra application code. And so just take your application and keep cutting things out as long as you can still see the problem, and then eventually, hopefully, you'll have something that's pretty minimal. Because when I read through your issue that you report, it's going to take. I don't want to spend hours trying to understand all of your app code. It's going to save everybody a lot of time if we can start with just the pieces that are relevant. Of course, for some more complex bugs, especially if it relates to batching and things like that, sometimes it can be hard to reproduce outside of a full app. And then in that case, I am more willing to dive into to an app and try to understand the code. But if your bug is like, this DOM property isn't getting applied properly, then that's probably not something that's dependent on your whole app, and it really helps us out if that can be extracted to a small example. Also great to do is test if it's if you're using an older version of React, then test if it's still an issue on the latest version of React, because maybe we fixed it. And then also, when you do find an error in the latest version, it can also be helpful to us to know if it used to work in an older version, if it's a regression, because if it is, then that's probably going to be a higher priority for us, because then we know we're breaking people's apps instead of a sort of something that we've never supported, where we'd still ideally like to support it, but it's not going to be as high a priority for us.
Cool. Yeah, and normally, like, creating a jsbin or fiddle or something like that is pretty simple. You have like npm cdn to load in React Core and React DOM.
Yeah. And so on the React websites, there are links to a simple JS fiddle that includes just React and React DOM. So that's a really quick example. Or if you just go to react.jsbin.com, then that's also just a starter JSBin, which basically includes React and nothing else.
Oh, that's really good. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Yeah, it's nice to have those starters.
Yeah.
Cool. So, let's assume that we've had a conversation about this bug, and we've determined that yes, this is indeed a bug in React. How do I go about contributing a fix for the bug?
Yeah. So, to be honest, oftentimes it can be hard to understand what's going on in the React core, and so sometimes it's not going to be easy for a new contributor to dive into the code and figure out what's going on. But the basic things that you're going to need, no matter what sort of change you're trying to make, is a basic understanding of how to build React, how to test it locally with your changes, and then also just sort of how we structure our files and how they're laid out is something that also trips a lot of people up. In terms of just how do you build React, we actually have I think instructions in the README. It's not super complicated. It's just like an npm install and a grunt build, and then you'll end up with built versions of React in the build directory locally in your repo. And so if you're using the browser builds of React, those will be right there. You'll also get a tarball, which you can use with npm if if you're trying to test something in a larger npm app. And then we also have some examples in the repo. They're very, very basic things, like we have just a quadratic formula calculator and a couple things like that. But those are actually what I personally use most of the time when experimenting with React and with some changes locally. I'll just open one of those files, because those already point to the local builds of React that you'll have, and then just change the component to be whatever I want to test in that particular instance. So those are just in the examples directory.
Okay, so for those, you generally, like, you don't normally commit changes to the examples. You just kind of modify them for what you're doing.
Just locally. And you could also just make a separate test file in the repo that you don't check in, if that's more amenable to your workflow, and then you're not changing an existing file that's checked in. You can just have a file that just stays untracked. That would also work fine.
Okay, cool. So, and lots of the process is documented in the contributing.md file.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at it right now, and it looks like fairly simple, but there is a process with pull requests. Can you talk about like the couple of things that you're kind of required to do as somebody creating a pull request?
Yeah. So basically, whenever you create a pull request on GitHub, the best thing to do is create a new branch for your change locally, and then push that branch to your fork. Then you can make a pull request to our master branch, and you're always going to want to make a pull request to the master branch of React. And then if we want to pull it into a release, or if it's a website change, lots of people end up sending pull requests directly to the GH pages branch, where our website is served from. But that's actually not what you want to do, because that's completely auto-generated. And so both for code changes and docs changes, you always want to send pull requests to the master branch, and just sort of try to write out a solid description of what the pull request does, what sorts of things it's fixing, and then make sure that it passes the unit tests and lint by running grunt tests and grunt lint locally. If you don't do that locally, then our Travis build will catch that, and it'll turn red at the bottom of your pull request and say some tests are failing, and you'll at least need to fix those before we can even think about merging anything in. And then also, just for legal reasons, we ask that every contributor signs sort of a CLA, just to say that we have the rights to use your code. But that's basically the main steps.
Okay, cool. Yeah, doesn't sound crazy complicated, and it's pretty common to have all of those steps for other open source projects.
Absolutely.
I think the part where things get a little bit more specific to React and maybe a little bit more challenging is exactly what you said, the actual code and understanding how things are pieced together and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, maybe we should kind of go through the code, and you can talk about what the different where the different files are for different pieces of React core.
Yeah.
If you want to pull up your or share your screen, or
however. Yeah, I can do that.
Cool.
I'll do that here. So hopefully you can see this.
Yep, I can see it great.
Yeah, so this is the React repo. All of the source files of React are in the source folder. These other folders are just for the docs and various build things. But all of the source of React is in this source directory. And the entry point, well, so we have this mostly split into a few different directories. The main ones are isomorphic, which contains what we put in the React package on npm, and then in renderers you'll have what we put in the React DOM package, or also we have a React Native renderer package, which you wouldn't use directly, but that's what React Native uses. so the files that are DOM specific or React Native specific are going to be in this renderers directory, in renderers DOM or renderers native. And so you sort of need to figure out exactly what file you'll want to change. But why don't I start with react-dom.js here in the source renderers DOM directory, because this is what you'll get when you just require React DOM or load the React DOM browser script into the page. Then you'll get this React DOM module. And if you scroll down, you can see that at the bottom of this function, it just says module.exports equals React. That should probably say React DOM, but this variable has a bad name. But if you scroll up in the file, you can see that it has React DOM.find DOM node, React DOM.render, .unmount component at node, and a couple other things. And so these are the main the entry points to React DOM. And then we also have some other things down here to do with the dev tools, which you probably don't need to worry about most of the time. But let me also talk a little bit about the module system. And so, if you look at these require lines, these all import other files from inside our repo. But you'll notice that they don't have the path to each module. We just say require React mount or require React reconciler. These are all these internal modules. And this is because we actually have a custom require system. Much of this is for legacy reasons, but it also means that it's easier for us to move files around because we don't actually have the full path of each file. And so if I want to move this React mount file to a different directory, then I don't need to change react-dom.js at all. And so that's one reason that we do it. But it can be a little unfamiliar for people who are new to it. And so if you look at this, what this does is we actually search the entire tree for a file that has a line here that says @ provides module, and then this one is the React DOM module, but when we do require React mount, it looks for a file that says @provides module React mount. Luckily for you, we're very consistent, and the module name is actually always going to be the same as the file name also. And so you can also just look for a file called reactmount.js. On GitHub, this is actually pretty easy when you're browsing the code. GitHub supports this shortcut where if you press the T key, T as in teacup, then you get this prompt here where you can actually just type some or all of a file name. So if I just type React mount here, then you can see all of the files in this repo that contain React mount. And this first one is the one that you would get if you do React mount. These others are a test file for React mount, and then some other things called React test mount and React native mount, which are separate modules. So if you do require React mount, then you would end up in this file which does have provides module React mount and is called reactmount.js.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's really, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because yeah, looking at that, I was like, wow, you have a lot of NPM dependencies or something.
Right. Yeah. So we actually have almost no NPM dependencies. It turns out, but
okay.
Basically, all of these are modules internal to React.
Okay, so I'm curious about this require system, because obviously when I am using like Webpack in my project and I'm requiring React DOM, I expect that what I'm requiring is the built version where all these require statements are resolved properly. So how does that work?
Yeah. So when we actually compile, we use we compile the files before we ship them to NPM for two reasons. The first of all, the first reason is that we use some ES6 features, which we don't expect that everybody has support for yet, and so we compile those down to ES5, and then also because of the require system, we need to rewrite these require lines because in Node, if you just run this, it's not going to work. And so what we do is our build process actually right now It's kind of hacky, but it works. What we do is we copy every single one of these files into just the same directory. So we have locally it'll be in your build/modules directory, and then that gets copied to the package. It'll be like react/lib/react mount or something like that. And I should mention all of these files, they are shipped to npm, but we consider them private modules, and so we might rename them or change the APIs of them in each release, and you shouldn't rely on reaching into them. But just in terms of implementation details, how it works is we copy all of these files into the same directory, and then we change every single one of these require lines so that it just says require ./DOM lazy tree, or require ./DOM property, require ./React browser event emitter. So just looking for a file with that name in the same directory.
Okay, yeah. So I'm looking at I'm looking at npmcdn.com right now. And yeah, that's exactly what I see. So if you're curious, you go to the package.json and you'll see the main is React.js. And so if we go to React.js, then we see it requires lib_react. And then from there in the lib, it's just all the files. It's just been flattened. Yeah, that's really interesting. Interesting way to do that. And then obviously there's the dist with the UMD build. Right.
Yeah. And for that, we basically do the same method of flattening. And then right now we're just running it through Browserify. And then that gives a bundle that you can use anywhere.
Perfect. Cool. So let's see. Is there anything like, so we have the React DOM side of things, and the React Native side of things is in a totally separate repo and everything, right?
So we actually have a bunch of the code for React Native is in the React repo, and it's going to be, so I was looking at source renderers DOM, and then here's source renderers native, and we do have a bunch of the code is in these files in this one directory. And really, conceptually, you can think of all of these files as part of the React Native repo, because they're only used on React Native, and we don't support using them in any other circumstance. But we actually have them currently in the React repo because they use a lot of internal React APIs in order to function, and we like to be able to refactor these internal APIs more easily. And so what we've done is we've moved the React Native files and the React DOM files. They're all in one repo, so that if we change an internal API of React, we can change the call sites in the React DOM code and in the React Native code all at once, instead of sort of making a change in React and then needing to update it in React Native when we then update React in React Native, because we did that before, and it was a little bit cumbersome and hard to deal with. And so right now we've moved these files into the React repo, and maybe one day, once the internal APIs are a little more stable, maybe these will move back into the React Native repo, because eventually we'd like to make it easy for anybody to build a React that renders to anything, not just DOM or native, but you might have something that renders to 3.js or to Canvas, and there actually are projects that people have made that do those, but they're sort of unstable, and whenever we release a new version of React, then they need to rewrite a bunch of the code, because currently we're not at a point where that's easy to do and where it's stable.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes total sense. So alternatively, you could go to like mono repo approach, but I'm guessing that yeah, well, it just kind of depends. There are tools for everything.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so one other thing, we've just got a couple minutes left, but one thing that I'd like to ask about too is like new features. If I wanted to build a new feature, what are some guiding principles of, like, how do I know whether a particular feature I have in mind would even have a place in React?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is something we don't have a great process for right now, honestly. But one thing I definitely want to push people on is try to open an issue and get agreement on what you want to build before going to build it, because the majority of pull requests that we get for people adding new features, we don't end up taking, because oftentimes it's not something that it's not a feature that we would actually want to be part of React, and that can happen for a number of reasons. First of all, if you can build the functionality you want on top of React without changing React, then we almost always prefer that. And what one of our goals with React is to make this really stable but flexible base where people can build anything they want on top of it. And so if you can build on top of React without changing React, then that's almost always preferred. Of course, that's oftentimes not possible, and then it makes more sense to talk about changing React. And it's hard to give general guidance about the types of things that we will and won't accept. And we're trying to get a little bit better at trying to explain all of our reasoning there. But it turns out that oftentimes, we won't take a feature because it might have a performance impact in some way, or maybe it makes it harder for component authors to build encapsulated components, and they would need to worry more about the other components in the tree, or things like that they're a little hard to describe in the abstract, which is the primary reason we haven't written up guidelines about this, about trying to understand exactly which features we will and won't take. But if you file an issue with a specific proposal, then we'll do our best to respond to it and at least let you know our thoughts on adding that.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Another question: if I know that I want to contribute to React, but maybe I don't have a specific bug or a feature, I just want to, I have extra time, I want to help out. How do I do that? Where do I go to find places I can help?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to the issues page on our GitHub repo and filter for the label called "Good First Bug," it's this green label. Then you'll find a handful of bugs which we've labeled as a good intro bug, and so some of these are easier than others, but for the most part, these are bugs where we've decided that we do want to make some change. Hopefully, it's a pretty straightforward change. It only requires changing one or two files, and usually we try to outline exactly what needs to be done when we add that label. So oftentimes when you look through the comments, you can see exactly what steps you would need to do in order to do that. We do get a lot of interest in these bugs though, and so oftentimes you'll find that that everybody has already sort of claimed one and said that they're going to work on it, and there might not be any new ones that are free to claim. And I don't have any good advice there, other than to be patient, because for the most part, React actually is pretty stable and doesn't have bugs that often, doesn't run into trouble that much, and so it's not so often that we're actually in a huge need of lots of small bug fixes. But when we do see good opportunities for new contributors, we do try to label them.
Very good. That's good that you do that, because obviously it'd be easier probably for you to just fix it yourself really quick and move on. But I think you're building a community of contributors. I think that's a good thing. Yeah,
that's definitely our goal.
Cool. So one last question, and that is, if I want to be involved in the future of React, I know that there's talk about things to make React better in a lot of different ways that could potentially lead to wild changes in the implementation and stuff. But what, how would I get involved in those kinds of conversations?
Yeah, so there's two main ways, I guess. The first is if you search for a different label. Actually, we have a label called Big Picture here, which has some of our crazy ideas for significant changes we would want to make, and these are basically always things that require a lot more discussion, both from us on the core team and from the community, so we have a good sense of what people need. Then these are some of the things that we've been thinking about, and you can read through these issues and comment on them. One other thing I want to point out is on our we have a separate repo in the React.js GitHub organization called github.com/reactjs/reactfuture, which also has some of our far future ideas about different things that we might want to do in the future, including potentially doing layout inside of React, or different things with web workers and running code in a separate thread. And there's no real promise that we'll end up doing any of these things, but these are at least some of the things we're thinking about. And so you can always read through these to see some of our future ideas.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing all those resources, and thanks for chatting with me about this. Maybe we can do this again sometime if anybody has further questions about like more things about how to contribute. Yeah, I'll keep tabs on the comments, and I'll let you know if people would like to see more.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that this was helpful.
Thanks. We'll see ya.
See ya. Thank you.